Now, before you click off this video, because some of you guys might even think this is a joke, in this video I'm going to tell you why the Sony A6400, the camera that I'm using on to record this video right now, is the perfect camera for all-round purposes, whether it be for photography, videography, client work, professional work, or even beginner work. So let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here or don't know who I am, my name is Joravar and I'm a content creator and entrepreneur living and working here in London, UK. So now a lot of you guys might be thinking, well, why the Sony A6400 and not the other mirrorless cameras, or whether it be full frame and crop sensor in the Sony lineup? You know, you've got the Sony A6500 and A6600, which are both newer than the A6400. And you've also got last year's Sony release, the ZV-E10. So what makes a Sony A6400 king over those other cameras, especially now going into 2023? Well, there's three things that come up. The first is the build quality. The second is the capabilities that you have with the camera. And third, and obviously I think most important for a lot of you guys that are watching this video and even considering this, is the price. Before actually going into the main talking points though, I want to quickly touch on what the difference is between full frame and mirrorless for, you know, Sony lineups, Canon lineups, every single camera lineup, and why you should sort of not just only consider the full frame option, but even consider crop sensor versions as well. So camera companies have released two types of cameras now for, you know, even as far back as I can remember. One is full frame and one is APS C. Now, for the Sony lineup and all the other lineups, the C in APS C stands for cropped. And that's pretty much all that is the difference between a full frame and a crop sensor camera. If you're doing professional work such as big prints or you're a professional photographer, then maybe, yeah, you should only consider full frame. But if you're someone who needs a camera for YouTube, everyday stuff like, you know, going out with the family and taking pictures, traveling, then really do consider a crop sensor camera. The biggest difference between the two is the price. And, you know, I would argue that if I was to use a full frame camera and an APS C camera and put two photos side by side, a lot of people wouldn't even be able to tell me what the difference is. It usually just comes down to your personal use of the camera and whether you are someone who are professional or you just need a camera for everyday use. But the second thing is the crop sensor of this camera in terms of when you put lenses. So what that means is that a 16mm on a full frame camera will give you that full field of view, which is a full 16mm view that you would get through your camera. Now, if you put that same lens onto a APS C camera like the A6400, that 16mm turns into a 24mm. So the lens that I'm using right now is a 50mm Sony 1.8. Technically, it's about 70 something millimeters if it was on a full frame. Now, the only real difference between that is that you'd have to just keep your subject further back or move further back. So it can be limiting in some instances, but for the most part, all you have to do is just move a bit further back. It really isn't a big deal. Now let's go into the main talking points. Now, we talked earlier a little bit about the price, but I don't think that's the only thing that should be considered when you are actually looking to purchase something. Because, you know, if you've got that extra money to spend, then why would you not get the better camera? Well, I've split it into both positives and negatives, and I've got three of each. And the first thing I want to talk about is the photo quality that you can get from this camera. Now, I'm going to leave some of my pictures on screen now, and you can tell me if you think that they're professional or if you just think that there's something that is taken on a cheaper camera compared to some of the full frame cameras on Sony's lineup. You know, the 24 megapixel sensor that you've got in the A6400 is bang on in my opinion, and photos are always sharp for me, and it's got loads of different focus modes as well, which really does help you get a sharper image and a more professional photo. This takes us perfectly into the second positive that I've got, which is the autofocus. And if you're someone who's just looking to get a camera, take a few pictures, high quality pictures, you don't really care about the settings and stuff, this autofocus is perfect for you. Now, it really does adjust amazingly depending on what type of situation you're in. If you're in low light, the autofocus will pick that up and change your settings accordingly. Whereas if you're somewhere in the daytime, you know, traveling, taking photos of cities, then that also adjusts and give you the perfect settings for your scenario as well. The third and final positive that I want to talk about is the actual build quality of this camera. And I've got to say, I've used this camera in loads of different scenarios and it is solid. I mean, you don't have to tread on eggshells when you're using this camera. You don't have to worry about a little knock here and there, and you don't have to worry about your money going down the drain, because although it is a lot of money for a camera, any camera is expensive. It's not as expensive as the full frame equivalents. Now, obviously, don't go chucking this off a cliff because it's not going to survive that. But for the average day-to-day use wear and tear, dropping it here and there, you know, putting it in your bag and being a bit rough with it, you don't need to worry about this camera. It is solid. Okay, so now quickly, before you guys go in a new tab and buy this camera, with positives there are negatives, and although there are not that many negatives, the ones which come up are a bit annoying. The first thing, and arguably the thing that I find most annoying, is the low light capabilities. Now, don't get me wrong, this camera will be better than your mobile phone if you're taking it out and recording. Well, in my opinion at least. But if you are going out at night, don't just expect to flip it into auto and let the camera do the work for you. You will have to learn a bit and actually adjust your settings manually in order to get the best low light capabilities. But even that is not amazing compared to some of the other cameras out there in Sony's lineup. You just have to keep remembering that for the price you're paying, you're not going to get everything. There will be a few stuff that the camera manufacturers cheap out on, and the low light sensor is definitely one of those. But just make sure that you are flipping into your settings manually, and you're adjusting that ISO and adjusting that shutter speed to get a sharp image, and you should be good. But I guess if you're someone who is new for photography and videography, then that will sort of force you to get better at your skill and perfect your skill. So positive or negative, you decide a bit what you will. Secondly is that crop sensor. Now, I know I just said you just got to move a little bit back. Well, it's not as easy as that in most cases. So when I'm recording myself in a vlog, I usually shoot in my 16mm lens. Now, don't get me wrong, I can still fit in the screen. Like, I'm not, half of my head is cut off and half of my body's cut off. It's not like that. But it's just a little bit too tight for my liking. Whereas if I then chuck that lens on a better full frame camera, I can get that full vlog type feel that I want to get, like that Casey Neistat feel, that Peter McKinnon feel. I can't really get that in my videos if I'm vlogging myself. But, you know, I don't really vlog that much, so it's not a big deal for me. But if you're getting a camera for solely vlogging, either choose like the 10mm 1.8 lens from Sony or just get the full frame camera. But it's probably cheaper to just get a crop sensor camera and get a wider lens. So that 10mm will probably be then what, like a 16mm in full frame. So it's sort of something that you have to keep in mind, and at times it can get a little bit annoying when you can't really move further back and you have like the subject right there and I want to take a picture of a photo right there. I can't do anything because I don't have the lens to be able to move further back and get a wider field of view. And even if I do have a wide lens, it's still cropped in that sensor. So yeah, one of the most annoying things on the camera, but still, like I said, not really a big deal for me because I don't really vlog. I don't really find myself in situations where I need to move further back, but something that might actually affect you guys. Lastly is the IBIS. Now, for you guys that don't know, IBIS basically stands for in-body image stabilization. And what that basically means is what it says, you're not going to get stabilization on your images. If you have an OSS lens, like what I'm shooting on now, or like the 70-350, which I also have, you won't really feel that as much because the lens is doing a good job by itself of stabilizing the shot. But if you're not using OSS lenses, like I used to have the Sigma 16mm that everyone raves about for this camera, is so good. But when you're actually taking photos or videos, that stabilization feature that's missing really does come into action and you will notice it. So that's why now I can do a video of my 3 main lenses that I carry. It's ultra minimal. I don't like to carry tens of hundreds of lenses in my bag. I like to carry 2 or 3 max that will sort of be like an all-round type of focal length so I can shoot whatever I want. But all my lenses now have OSS, which is optical steady shot, which is built into Sony lenses, and I will only ever buy lenses which have that OSS. Now, answering the $1 million question, I know I've rambled a lot, but let's get down to the nitty gritty and talk about why and how this is the perfect camera for you guys in 2022, moving into 2023. Well, like I said in the beginning, price is amazing. I've seen this go on eBay for as low as £500, which is amazing. You know, I picked up this camera brand new 3 years ago, about $1,000. I mean, yes, you're not going to get as sharp images as that of Sony A7R3 or A7 IV. You know, of course, that's not you're not paying for that quality. But if you know how to use your settings, or if you're just someone who wants to switch it in auto and go about your day, then why would you get this and not? Why would you not get this and go get something else that you're not really going to take advantage of? So that's where I'm going to leave this video. I really do hope that you did enjoy it. If you have made it this far, then please do subscribe down below and like the video and let me know in the comments if you did enjoy this type of content. And I'm going to start making regular videos now. So this is the type of stuff that I do want to move into. You know, photography, videography, etc., tech, all that good stuff. So if that's something that interests you, like I said, do please subscribe down below. Take care and I'll see you all in the next video.